There is a correlation whereby the fintech that is at the center of this innovation is looking at different data sets that are coming from the value chain. Is also looking at the data sets of that particular customer who has a mobile phone number with a telecom. So by virtue that they have a unique identifier at the telecom, there is a lot of data around their voice usage, around their data usage, around their mobile money usage, and with that kind of data, there is a very good enhancement of the credit scoring engine at the end of the day. So those are some of the steps that we took during COVID-19 to kind of accelerate access to finance. But I must note that for you to have digitalization get closer to the last mile, there is what we call the basic prerequisites, or the digital infrastructure or prerequisites that you need to be in place. Those are what we call the digital rails. Now, how do you strengthen the digital rails? The digital infrastructure that is needed to ensure that if you're talking about digitalization, it is actually evident. So the first one is access to phones, phone penetration. Because in the rural areas, we know that majority of the rural farmers actually don't own phones. So how do you come up with innovative, sustainable models that can increase phone penetration? One of the initiatives that we've been implementing for a couple of months is around affordability, and with MTN Uganda, we have started a device lending campaign in rural areas. So they have a mass market device lending product, but we are saying, can we come up with something for the rural population? And with that, what we've done is that, again, through the VSLA and the cooperative model, as our major anchor partners, we do some sort of screening at the VSLA level. We are able to guarantee that this particular farmer in a VSLA can pay for this phone. We have mini smartphones going for approximately $20, that is around 70,000 Uganda shillings, and we subject this as a loan, a mobile phone loan to that farmer, and payable in 3 months. With that, we have seen that the adoption definitely can increase, but there still exist some challenges, because there are those that will not be able to pay back on time and definitely affect the whole program. But those are some of the baby steps in terms of building the necessary prerequisites, or what you would call the digital rails that you need to get in place to ensure that digitalization can work. Connectivity and etc. are other examples, but I can see you want to take me to another question. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. When I associate with the panels or interviews, personally, I hate debates because they normally don't give fruition. But this is information that we can use. That's very important, and thank you for that. Let me come to Mr. Regan Mugume, research analyst, EPRC. You've heard what Stephen said there. UN is doing that at a small scale, I can tell you. What are your views? How can that be replicated? Because it's already tested. There is ABI, there is Stanbic, all those guys can use that kind of model. How can we replicate that in scale? What are your thoughts?
Thank you so much, moderator. How can we replicate and scale up what UN is doing? One is we have got to make some of the basics for digitalization very affordable and available. For example, if you are going to scale up the mobile money, for example, mobile phone penetration, you have got to reduce taxes on the mobile phones, for example, coming in, because we know that most of the mobile phones are imported. Secondly, you have got to make electricity affordable and accessible. When you look at the rural electrification campaign that is going on, I think that's a good step towards scaling digitalization, especially in the agriculture sector. And also you have got to to sensitize the masses. Because, for example, whereas almost every adult in Kampala is able to use a mobile phone, there are people in the remote areas, deep down in maybe Kisoro, Karamoja, who are in agriculture. You've got to sensitize the masses about the benefits of digitalization and how it can reduce costs, because you also have got to bring out the costs of digitalization. How it can, for example, reduce transactional costs. You don't have to, if you are a farmer, you don't have to suffer the transport costs from the farm to the market. You can actually be able to access market online, virtual markets, business to person transactions, business to business transactions. And in doing that, you're increasing productivity. And you've also got to sensitize the farmers about financial inclusion benefits, savings, and access to credit. Most of us well know that right now mobile money platform gives access to credit. Momo, MTN Momo, MTN mobile money Momo. And this is not for advertising, but we've got to sensitize our people in the rural areas to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. If a farmer, for example, accesses mobile money, then they can be able to access credit to invest in their farming business. So, and people out there, most of them are actually in subsistence agriculture. They need to know that farming can be turned into a business. So all these benefits need to be brought down to the grassroots to ensure that people know about them. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Regan Mugume. Based on what you said there, you didn't say it, you didn't nail it, but you kind of, if you ask me to conclude correctly, government. I can tell you, I know that, for instance, millions of tons of input is given by government, for instance, through NADS. And then there are government extension workers who go to these people who have received these seeds and they engage them one-on-one. I've seen stories where somebody starts with, like one pig. Apologies to those who are fasting, by the way, but it's one. And in about 8 months, 12 months, something has happened to their household income. And there was subsistence, as Mr. Mugume said there, but because somebody engaged them and said, okay, this animal here is to bring money to you. Within the next 2-3 years, they have a totally different story, and those stories exist. So government has a system already. And we see UNCDF here has a system that, an ABI, there are those things existing already. But I sense as if they're parallel from the standpoint of the journalist. They are parallel. How about maybe we try to find a meeting point? That's my suggestion. However, let's move on. Let me move on to Mr. Collins. How can we reduce the parallels? I mean, there's innovation here, fantastic stuff. Government is doing its own thing there, and we're all aiming for the same ball. How can we reduce the parallels and bring all these good forces together? What are your thoughts?
Thank you very much. I think that's partly the nature of life. Everyone has to try and do what is best suited for them to do within the constraints of their respective mandate. But usually the best thing would be for government to create a fora for interaction. I remember in the past there used to be the microfinance forum where different stakeholders from the development world, from the academia, from the practitioners met under the chairmanship of the Ministry of Finance and discussed in this forum what each of the other players were doing. And that is for purposes of identifying synergies rather than create duplications. And this has been revived. I'm made aware of this has been revived. So I think the people in the agriculture finance space could make use of this kind of fora so that they can share what each player is doing. Somebody mentioned digitization. There could be another player also involved in digitization. I'm also aware of government programs like Profira that are supporting digitization, both of SACCOs and VSLAs. So a situation where you have both the private and the public sector interacting in a fora to know what the other is doing, and also in the academia and the research world, and reinforce each other rather than duplicate each other. But I think the facets of life are such that everyone must try to do something. Yeah.
Very good. I know. Stephen, you want to come back, but let me first go to Stanbic. Let me first go to, let me just get the name right. Let me move to Mr. Negombi Emmanuel. What we are discussing now is innovation, technologically. And you're a commercial bank, and CDF is not, it's the UN. From the standpoint of the private player, who is you, how can we leverage those kinds of dynamics with their challenges to effectively increase the footprint of financing agriculture? What are your thoughts?
Thank you very much. And it's quite insightful to hear this. So I think as a private sector player, one thing that I can tell you is, in my experience with agriculture finance, I think one of the most successful and one of the best structured PPPs that we've had in this context has been what we call the Agriculture Credit Facility. It's something that we did in collaboration with the government, and in my opinion, it's been very successful. So to answer your question is on what we can do. Personally, with what I've seen that has happened since COVID hit, I am convinced that the future of agriculture finance is digital. If we want to do more in this sector, we have to look at the smallholder farmer. They form the bulk of this sector, but they've been the most neglected. We've advanced, I think, substantial amounts of credit towards the other side of the agriculture value chain. We are being moved partly by design, partly by default. We've saturated the other sectors. So production is now the virgin market, and most of us are moving there. That sector has its challenges, but I think digital can, to a very large extent, mitigate the risks or the challenges that are there. That's why I say the future is digital. So how can we enter there in the context of digital? And for me, I think what I would call a silver bullet is partnerships. So it's all about partnerships. For a very long time, we've operated with people who are good with words, call it a silo mentality. You sit as Stanbic, you design your app, you roll it out. Equity comes with its upload. So we do things on our own. I know for a fact, from experience, but also from an economics point of view, it's not sustainable. There's a lot of work that goes into rolling out a typical digital financial solution that may not be suitable for a commercial. A commercial player like me, I'm looking at profit, return on equity. So if I'm investing in something, I want to see how much profit I'm going to get out of it. And I like what UNCDF said, and to a slight extent what Profira did. And these are all partners we are working with, by the way. That's the beauty. So as Stanbic, one of the things we've really caught on quite fast is partnerships. We want to leverage partnerships. And why we do that is we all have different objectives. We're a commercial bank. I don't want to lie to you. We are here to make profit. But we're also a responsible corporate citizen. We don't want to kill our clients while we make the profit. We want to do it in a sustainable manner. But there are people whose objectives are not profit per se. They probably want to look at financial inclusion. They worry about how many farmers are accessing a certain product, how many people have been trained to use a certain product. So what we've done to a large success is we look out for such people. We've worked with UNCDF, we worked with Profira, we've worked with Abitrust for decades now, we work with the central bank. So whichever like-minded partner we can think of, we bring them on board.
And we say, we have a very good example. One of the best things we are doing in the agriculture sector, which is one of the interventions we actually came up with during COVID, is a platform called One Farm. Some of you could have heard about it. With One Farm, we are trying to digitize agriculture value chains. In digitizing, it has a lot of benefits. If we can digitize a typical value chain, an example that was presented earlier today of Chagalanyi, there's so much we can push through that value chain in a digital way that it will make, it will revolutionize agriculture finance. And that's what One Farm is doing right now. But some of the things that we picked out while implementing One Farm is, and my brother also mentioned it, data. So you have to collect data for seasons. You know, before that algorithm can become accurate to give you the confidence to take a credit decision on the data, you have to have, I think when we piloted, they were telling us to get about 7 seasons of data. You know, so that's time, that's money. But then we got partners who said, I'm happy to meet the cost of that data. I can actually come with people who can collect for you the data. So as a commercial bank, if I walked to my CEO and told her to sign off on that, she would probably look at me sideways. But if I came and said, look, UNCDF is actually willing to do this, I could probably get an audience. So not to belabor the question, I think the short answer is partnerships. It's the way to go. And it's something that we're actually advocating for quite strongly. We want to look to do more. We're already working with a number of partners for whom I think as a bank we are grateful, but I think we can do more. We've advanced credit to the agriculture sector, but every time we sit in a forum like this, and I'm sure even if you open to questions right now, the consensus or the feedback is you're not doing enough. So we need to scale. We can very easily scale if we work with like-minded partners. It's to come together, work together, and I think we can do more if we work together. The silo mentality is not something I believe in. I don't think it's sustainable, and I think we need to move away from it. Thank you.
Absolutely, and it's not rhetoric that agriculture is the biggest sector in the country and supports most families. It's true. I know the ministers and other government guys like saying that in their speeches. It's true. And to some degree, even unwittingly, some people are moving away from the so-called subsistence to commercial, even in very small ways. There's a tendency away from just growing food to eat. If we grow some cassava, can we sell some of it because the kids need to go to school? Even in that rural school, we need to buy uniform. There's a tendency to grow things and sell some. So there's that tendency, but however, there are other things that should be done in that regard. I just want to recognize honorable members present here. We are honored by your presence. Let me just, please, honorables, you can wave so people see where you're sitting. Honorable Gabriel Okumu, MP Okoro County, you can wave so they see you. Yes. All right, you're welcome, honorable. We also have in the room Honorable Christina Kerogwang, MP Erute County. Welcome, honorable. And finally, Honorable Biraro Ephraim, MP Buhweju West. Welcome. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. By these constituencies, I see that you must be rubbing shoulders with farmers. We shall come to you later on. Let me turn to Irene before I come back to you, Stephen. You've had the digital proposition, and I know you're financier at some point in the chain. Is digital something that ABI can bring on board? What are the possibilities realistically from a financial standpoint?
Yeah, ABI Finance, that we learned a lot from COVID in terms of partners who were digitized, because we saw their resilience improving and their business continuity and service delivery. So ABI Finance is very keen in supporting innovations geared towards improving operational efficiency and ensuring service delivery that, and also those interventions that promote financial inclusion. And reason being, like we saw with COVID, that for those that were not digitized, some of them even closed down. And furthermore, we also saw that it's not only about digitization, but even digital and financial literacy. There's a lot of digital phobia, especially in the rural communities. Any small increment, like for example, the mobile money tax, throws off these smallholder farmers completely, not knowing that someone can rather pay the tax of 3,000 shillings and save 15,000 in transport. So digital and financial literacy is so critical. We've seen some of our projects where we've supported digital platforms, and where clients, after transacting digital on their phones, all go and line up to the circle to check whether what they've done actually is what reflects. So digital phobia is so critical. So we are so keen on supporting those interventions, especially, like you've said, those that can have sector impact. And to have sector impact, we work with umbrella organizations or apex organizations, because we realize you can reach out to more. Supporting individual digitization might take longer, but if I go through the Stanbic Enterprise Fund, give them 2 billion to digitize 55 circles, then the impact will be easily felt. And we've also, for example, worked through still umbrella organizations like the Uganda Central Cooperative Financial Services, and we've supported them with like 3.9 billion to set up centralized digitized systems, because with centralized systems, it is cheaper to transact, especially in the rural areas, rather than each owning like a dashboard or a system. Even for agent banking, we saw that before the shared agent banking platform was launched by the Uganda Bankers Association, many regulated financial institutions had already started on their own agent banking platforms. But when this shared system came in place, they realized that it is cheaper to transact. And now very many of them have joined the shared agent banking platform. So digitized centralized systems are very critical in promoting financial inclusion, managing costs of operations, and we are keen in supporting such innovations, and which can easily be realized if you work through the apex bodies or umbrella organizations rather than individual institutions. Thank you.
Yeah, I gather that organizing people is critical for these things. Absolutely. Let me come to before Stephen, I keep on holding you because I know you're going to unleash information. Mr. Mugume, let me come back to you. You mentioned taxation, electricity. Okay, let's talk about the mobile handset. I don't think we can expect government to say, because of certain farmers, we are going to waive tax on all. Are there any specific things, and MPs are here, and government sometimes listens. Are there certain specific things in the policy, even if it's the mobile handset, that can be done and they're farmer-centric, that we can achieve removing some of these bottlenecks to make this digitization, which is fantastic, work? What do you think?
Thank you so much, Sam. What can government do to make digital platforms work for farmers? One, you realize that digitalization requires certain key infrastructure. When, for example, you look at internet, which is a very key prerequisite in digitization, internet needs to be available for these farmers to do transactions, for example, certain transactions. And government, for example, right now, the internet tax, for example, 12%, needs to be revised. It's very key because internet in other countries, you'll find, for example, the level of digitization from our neighbors, Kenya, is quite high compared to Uganda. And that built their resilience for the agricultural sector in Kenya because everyone, almost everyone, every farmer could access internet and a mobile phone. Now, although the government needs to mobilize taxes through these, for example, internet service tax, we need to be cognizant that we have to promote agriculture and financial inclusion among these farmers. Because the more these farmers are excluded from the financial sector, the more they will remain in the subsistence economy. So there is need to revise internet tax. Yes, we need the taxes, but we are keeping people in poverty because they cannot access the market economy. The president has been emphasizing the point of shifting from subsistence economy to the commercial economy, cash-led. Even that is the premise of the Polish development model. So we need to revise some of these taxes to ensure that farmers are able to access internet, farmers are able to access mobile handsets, and they are able to digitize. And also, for example, when you look, because mobile phones are not homogeneous, they are not uniform. If you have this basic phone, future phone.
Capability.
Thank you so much, Sam. If you have a capability, you cannot be able to do mobile banking. Because in mobile banking, you may need, for example, internet. So you are limited in terms of the financial products you can be able to conduct. So, and these smartphones are quite expensive. For example, my grandmother in Mitoma, I come from Mitoma, may not be able to access this smartphone because it's quite expensive. All she can afford is a future phone, which does not do mobile banking. But when you compare the rates in Rwanda, for example, high level of digitization. Yeah. Kenya, high level of digitization. These farmers are included in the commercial economy, in the money economy, which really matters. So we have got much as we need to collect the taxes. We need to be cognizant of these basics to uplift people from the subsistence to the commercial economy.
Okay. Thank you very much, Reagan. I do also have a sense, and again, we need to find a solution to some of the things he has touched, but because when you argue in a blanket, government says, where are we going to get the money to make roads? So there must be a way, in my view, to identify a specific group, and I'm coming back to you, Stephen. These handsets, all the things you provide, is there a way those groups can be isolated that need these kinds of things so that a certain policy is applied to them because they're the beneficiaries? Because when you put everything in blanket, government says, no, we can't. Is there a way we can disaggregate that group? What are your thoughts from your experience?
Yeah, so thank you very much. So what we've been doing at UNCDF as a market facilitator or convener is that we work with different stakeholders. And on the issue of handset or phone ownership, I already hinted on some of the initiatives that we're trying to do around device lending to address issues of affordability, availability of devices. One of the things that we are trying to advocate for, because one of the mandate we have is to how do we support and enhance the regulatory environment to create a smooth landing for digitalization, for example. So one of the things that we're trying to motivate for is, can we have the government have tax holidays on devices? So when we talk of devices, so we mean mobile phones, any type of electronic device that comes to the country. And that tax holiday can be given to the service providers the people that actually bring these devices to Uganda. If we're able to achieve that, what does that mean? For example, a phone that we are currently having at $20 is most probably going to cost $8 to the final consumer. So that's where we start from. So one of the things we have, it's good that we have the honorables here, is that if we could motivate for a tax holiday for devices coming to the country, that would reduce on the cost. That's number one. Then number two, at UNCDF, like I said, we do facilitate. So we've been having different players within the agriculture space that have been doing what we're calling digital farmer profiling. So we've been collecting a lot of data pertaining to different farmers that are organized in either a cooperative, either in a rural produce organization at the sub-county level, or at a farmer level or VSLA level. So we have those data sets, over 1 million farmers that have been profiled for a number of years. So how can we, for example, with the support of Ministry of Agriculture, come up with, I like the idea of having a centralized digital integrated platform, which will allow the different players, one, to bring the different profiles that have been done within the agriculture value chain to this one center, whereby Ministry of Agriculture will have visibility. As we speak, we have close to 18 partners in education, health, agriculture, and we're doing some sort of profiling to know the farmers. But think about having the different players that are doing the same like us. We'll be able to identify the farmers by one, region, by district, by sub-county, by parish, and by village. We have that data. It's electronic. We have a digital ledger system that captures and profile all farmers. So for example, if you want to know the farmers in Mitoma, it is very easy to work with agrotech or fintech, and we shall pull out that information for you. So now, because we have access to that kind of farmer database, if we have any special treatment that we are going to apply to the devices that have already gotten a tax holiday, these will be subjected to this particular set of customers. I do come from the telecom background. We have what we used to call user closer groups. So we shall have a closer group of farmers that have been profiled, they have been digitized, and what we are saying, because they don't have mobile phones, can we give them a subsidy, or can we have a pay-go-as-you-use model, whereby they receive a device from the supplier that already has a tax holiday, and this device can be paid on hire purchase arrangement for maybe 6 months. Now, with that kind of arrangement, we'll definitely see an uptick of the devices getting to the farmers, and particularly we have a gender focus as the UN. So one of the things that we'll do is would even have special treatment for women entrepreneurs that are bringing in devices, so that they actually enjoy, and we have special targets. So we do have performance-based agreements for some of our partners to be able to deliver on gender-specific dynamics. So I think that's one of the ways that we could actually advocate for this. But as we get the devices out there, there is this big monster that my brother mentioned about education and literacy. So what we've done through the convening power, we are working with UCC and NITA-U. We are developing a digital literacy and financial literacy toolkit. It's going to be open source. So this digital and financial literacy toolkit is going to be accessible to all players in the market. You can actually go to that one marketplace. If you want any digital or financial literacy content, we've actually put in some money, and this is already developed as we speak. And speaking to innovation, again, what we've done to avoid the silos and duplication, we have what we call Startup Uganda. So Startup Uganda is one of the flagship apex bodies that we've actually supported for the last 2 years. And through this Startup Uganda, we have 16 innovation hubs that have been subscribed and are members of the Startup Uganda ecosystem. So most of you that read extensively about India, startup ecosystem, Malaysia, Syria, all those countries that have actually leveraged digital to actually move very fast have gotten such arrangements. So we've actually formed this association, the Startup Uganda Association in Uganda. It has 16 innovation hubs, and the essence is, can we try to avoid duplication? Can they stop working in silos? And as we speak, we have also digital technical working groups that are hosted by the central bank, and all players in the market. At times, on a quarterly basis, we sit and try to update ourselves on what is actually happening. As I close, I just wanted to substantiate and expound on what my brother was saying around partnerships. So as we speak, during COVID-19, we realized that partnerships are key, and through one of our partners, Akelo Banker, that is actually working with Stanbic Bank, they were able to customize an agro-input loan product, because majority of the farmers in northern Uganda, they needed to access quality inputs, but they didn't have access because, one, there were so many quack input dealers on the market. But through digital platforms, they were able to identify quality service providers that had quality inputs. And with the support of Stanbic Bank, we've actually dispersed over 1 billion Uganda shillings worth of quality inputs. And now, because we've done that, the thing is that we want to start measuring, because these farmers received quality inputs, does that increase his productivity? Does that increase his yield? And does that increase his income? So that's the thought process that we're putting into this, and we believe we will be able to impact the lives of our smallholder farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And I don't know whether the audience members, ladies and gentlemen, some of the things that Stephen is saying they're doing, you knew. I didn't. Now I know, and I'm sure you all know. So, for the farmers' agenda and digitalization and innovation, it's nice to come together in a room like this and see eye to eye. Therefore, afterwards we can follow up, so that it's not just only to launch the yearbook. There is some fundamental fruition coming out of this. I just love what I'm hearing. Let's move on to Dr. Agabalinda. MFIs, in terms of the digital financing agenda for farmers, in your experience, where are we in that area?
Thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, as you said, the Tier 4 institutions, which mainly constitute SACCOs and the small microfinance institutions, the Village Savings and Loan Association, basically those that have been largely unregulated until recently, when the Tier 4 Act was enacted, are very well positioned to provide financial services, especially to smallholder farmers. And digitization has proved to be a very, very important aspect. As I speak today, a good number of SACCOs, especially the better performing SACCOs, have forged partnerships with local fintechs to develop applications and digitize their systems. And similarly, also a good reasonable number of VSLAs now have been digitized through different private sector arrangements, donor arrangements. We've had instances where we have village savings and loan associations get a mobile phone and an application to digitize their ledger, so that the transactions of the group are now kept by the group secretary on a digital form, but also that members, including those who have capability, you are saying capability cannot transact, but there are some linkages now using USSD codes, just like you dial *165, and then they can also follow and know how much money they have in the group. They can pull and push money to the group even without going for the group meeting. So there is a lot of innovation, and if there is anything COVID has taught us, is that we need to innovate digitally. So you ask me where we are on a good, we are on an upward trend of seeing digitization in the Tier 4 institutions, both in SACCOs and even in the smaller village savings and loan association. I know of a partnership through which Profira, one of the leading government programs supporting financial inclusion in the country, has been partnering with Stanbic Bank to digitize and provide support post-COVID support to very many village savings and loan association in 8 districts of northern Uganda. And one of the key components for that is digitization. So yes, it's doable and we are somewhere. Digitization, COVID has taught us that digitization not only enables people to push and pull money and transact during lockdowns per se, but it also is a cashless way of transacting and could actually reduce transmission. So I'm happy that at this launch of the Agriculture Finance Yearbook for this year, we are dwelling on recovery post-COVID, and that digitization is, everyone is talking about digitization. And I want to say that it's important to note that the Tier 4 has not been left out. We've seen digitization in SACCOs as well as in even lower end Tier 4 institutions like Village Savings and Loan Association. So we are somewhere, we are somewhere.
It's a good thing to know that we are, there's progress. That reminds me of a story. There's a lady and a gentleman in my village there where I live. I take care of a few chicken. And sometimes I'm at work and I get a text from somebody at home, food is finished for the chicken. Now I'm like, what do I do now? There's the people who mill and mix the food. I just make a call and say, can you send 40 kilograms home? Now that miller has a motorcycle. They know my home and they know all our homes in that neighborhood. So I call and they send the food and they say, I'm going to send you the money. And I send the money. And they send the text, received. That's digitization, not so. Yeah, sometimes we think digitization is some big animal. It is that. USSD. There's a bank, I don't want to mention it. I hear my kids sing it these days on TV. They sing that bank, star blah 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 hash. What does that tell you? That's the USSD. Open up an account. Yeah, with the feature phone. So we have already started. You see the tide, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. The tide is there. At least I see it. And the things we are hearing with these eminent ladies and gentlemen, we're already on. I was thinking somebody needs to build a case with government. Government doesn't just take, comments. Somebody needs to build a case. And the case has not been built, but there's information. I don't know who's going to take up the mantle, but somebody needs to build a case with government. And from the president, they love the lives of farmers. Farmers are very important, even to the honorable members of parliament. They are critical, they are voters, But besides that, they also, good household incomes make for happy people. And that can't be a bad thing. Widening tax base, how do you do it? I'm being told that we need to wind up. Our audiences who have been joining us live here, you've caught the part of the conversation which dwelled on digitization in financing for agriculture. And we have had a panel discussion here to give us highlights, to thresh the subject, to help us understand and appreciate what digitization can mean. COVID-19 did open the eyes to the need for digitization. Before then it was, it was talked about, but the urgency of it and the importance of it was seen during COVID. And for those who sampled it, it worked. It kept people afloat, even in agriculture. So for those of you viewers who are joining us online, we will shortly leave you, but the conversation will continue in this room, and at the point where you leave us, we have been speaking about building a case to government so that its fiscal approach, taxation, can be farmer-centric